Hey. Okay, go ahead.
No, what I was saying is, I mean, if you did write him, I would suggest writing him one more time because he gets a tremendous amount of emails.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes the emails go to spam because I get that sometimes, and, people say, why didn't he respond back to me? And then when I tell him about it, he has no idea that the person even wrote him. So I would write him again.
I will do that. Now, tell me a little bit about your esoteric background, your research. It looks like you've had quite a comprehensive, probably many lifetimes of research with Manly P. Hall, for instance, and there are many esoteric teachers that some that you mentioned in your site and so on. Can you give us a little background of your training and how you arrived at this at your present spiritual place?
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned earlier, my formal academia consists of mathematics, which was in USF, and I actually left that when I was around 22 years old, never to look back because, in short, the formal educational system is an absolute disaster. So,
Right.
So I took it upon my own initiative to get educated in what, my heart truly desired and followed, which was the spiritual, occult, esoteric. I was really big for a very long time initially, this was many years ago, into kind of psychic powers. What were psychic powers? Where did they come from and how to utilize them? And that led me many years ago to Kundalini Yoga, and there was actually a organization in India by the name of Divine Life Society, and you could Google search it. It's like DLSHQ, and they have tremendous amounts of literature from Hindu yogis, a lot of them which are essentially unknown, about Kundalini Yoga, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, meditation, all kinds of Eastern doctrines, and that led me to the Vedic Upanishadic scriptures, which essentially led me, ironically, after I read those, it led me back to Western Masonry, specifically, Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, which is really the cornerstone, at least available to the public, about anything and everything Masonic, and which is incidentally where Manly P. Hall got a tremendous amount of his literature from, Morals and Dogma. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but
I did not know.
Because
now you're going in and out again. There might be a bad connection.
It looks like I got a good connection over here. Should I try to call back?
No. If this continues, we'll stop for a moment, and then we'll get you on Skype, and we'll just start.
Right. Okay. Okay, we can do that. So if that happens, just let me know, and we'll go on Skype. But Manly P. Hall is fascinating. A tremendous amount of literature. And so as I'm going through Manly P. Hall, I just notice more and more.
Yeah, it's bad. I got his Skype number.
Yeah, I'm just going to pop into the audience here. I apologize. It's so obvious that...
Yeah, that's too bad.
I'm sorry. Your line is... it's different. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow for it by removing it. Folks, we're going to go on break. We're going to be back. Don't go anywhere. We're coming at you.
BBSRadio.com.
Okay, so we had a little interruption there, but you're on Skype now, and so if you could pick up where you left off, we will continue.
So, right, I was essentially talking about the fact that a lot of Manly P. Hall's, a lot of his stories originated from Morals and Dogma, and of course, I don't know, your viewers might know that Manly P. Hall himself was a 33rd degree Freemason towards the end of his life, as Albert Pike was. What led me into a lot of these studies, and like I mentioned before, what led me into a lot of these studies was just the mystique and intrigue of the magical force, which ironically the highest echelons of Masonry mention it. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is essentially flooded with it, and then you get into like Golden Dawn magic, which was the magical orders of the West. Even the Kabbalah mentions it in a lot of respects. So, that's essentially, I've been researching these things a lot, probably about the last 7 to 8 years, and there's a tremendous amount of discoveries that I've made over the years, and I don't even know where to start with them. So I don't know if you want to pick a specific point.
Well, it seems like it would be kind of pertinent at this point to talk about the various cycles and how they are coming to an end, and how the awakening process works, and how we activate the pineal gland in conjunction with the other glands, as the Egyptians and those who were involved with that particular site document that we have 360 senses at least, not just 5, and that by having a living system within, that we are self-contained consciousness units, and we can connect to everything or all that is.
Right, and exactly, and that's one of the things that you study when you come across a lot of these subjects is, the chakras, like you mentioned, and we have several chakras. Some systems say we have 7, some 13, some say that there's about 300, just like you mentioned, around 60. Yeah. And essentially, the way it's interesting that you mentioned that, because actually about 4 days ago I went, by almost chance, I usually don't go to these things, but it was like a sound healing class, where they use like bowls, certain like geometric shaped bowls, and when they resonated with them, then it was supposed to activate through resonation certain chakras in your body. I always come with an open mind to all these things. I never, especially if I don't know what it is or I haven't done any homework on it, then I just kind of come with it with a open mind and just see what happens. And interestingly enough, the guy's giving us a speech as we get there, and what to expect and this and that, and then he lets each of us select a bowl. Because he had about 6 bowls that you can select from. Each of them were different shapes and sizes, but they were all crystal bowls. And so I chose this one bowl, and and he just says, choose whichever one attracts you the most. I choose this bowl and I start playing it, and by playing it I mean you use this type of like a rubber stopper almost. I don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of like a rubber stopper stick, and you revolve around the edge, the brim of the bowl, in a circular fashion, comparatively slow, and it starts resonating. And it can get extremely loud, which is ironic. It could actually, pop your eardrums, or it can crack glass in the room, because it can get very, very.
Oh yeah. I have a couple of myself, not of the brass, not the handmade brass, not the crystal, but I'm very familiar with them, and they're quite powerful.
Right. And what's interesting is I'm playing this crystal bowl for a while, and this is where it kind of ties into the story of what you were just asking before, is that I felt it in my throat. Vividly I felt it in my throat, and as I'm playing this, after about 5, 10, 15 minutes of that, then I asked, and I looked down, and I noticed that particular bowl was designed to resonate with the throat chakra.
Wow.
And I thought that was interesting, because I made that note actually about 5 to 10 minutes before I noticed that at the bottom of the bowl on the other side, it said G, and it had the specific hertz frequency, and then it says this one is supposed to resonate and activate the throat chakra.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. So, it just goes to show that that's just one of many methods, and it's just kind of like through synchronization, because even when we study, like in my days of physics, not to get off topic, but when I used to study like cellular technology, any kind of communications actually, whether it's wireless, cellular, radio, then, how do two devices communicate? The way they communicate is when they resonate and sync with each other. Otherwise, the devices, even today, cannot communicate with each other. So, when you play with these bowls and you're resonating certain frequencies within a close capacity of them, then you're actually literally communicating with those chakras, and thereby activating the chakras which are latently hidden in your body. So,
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Now, we're finding out through the research of Dr. Matsuru Emoto and others who are using water.
Right.
We're finding out that it can be imprinted with various words and thoughts.
Right.
It's not it's not restricted to being in the same room. And I'm doing some research with somebody who's going to be doing some shows with me in the near future, Andrew Norton Weber, and I'm discovering that there's a whole a movement of using distilled water which is pure and not imprinted already, and it has no inorganic minerals in it, to cleanse the body from its negative polarities and actually remove toxins and fluoride from the pineal gland and the other glands. And I've been testing this out on myself for a few weeks and having some pretty astonishing results. So have you become familiar with the power of water and its role in our awakening and our chemistry?
Absolutely. I've actually, I started studying Dr. Emoto's research, about 4 or 5 years ago at very least, and there was a very good follow-up documentary on that by I think you could Google search this and watch it for free, and this would be, in addition to Dr. Emoto's research. It's called Water, the Great Mystery, and it basically talks about, what were the reasons a lot of religions use water, and, why do they use water, why do they bless water, and then, how water is actually very abused in our modern way when it has to run through steel pipes, and, what kind of water we receive energetically coming into our homes. But absolutely, I mean, it's kind of like homeopathy, that's what it really is, because homeopathy is nothing more than imbuing a certain pill or whatever it may be with a resonance frequency, and then inducing it in the body for the cells to mimic that frequency. So, it's absolutely valid. There's no question about it, and I've seen all the pictures and documentations that Dr. Emoto has released to the public. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him about 2 years ago. Very nice guy.
Yeah, yes, he seems that way.
Yeah, extremely nice guy, and I think it's a very valid form of science. I mean, it's something that's worked for a very long time. I think homeopathy is a very I don't want to say advanced, but a very valid medicine. In the Czech Republic, where my parents are from, and even all over Europe, it's still practiced heavily to this day. Because it's essentially harmless. You really can't overdose on it, and all it does is it just kind of communicates the correct frequencies or vibrations in your body for the cells to help or to facilitate replication more faster and more efficiently. So I think it's a very valid science whose time has come, and who knows? Hopefully, it will replace conventional medicine today.
Yes, well, we certainly could use some new approaches, and I know many people. I'm involved with a healing group myself, and the group, other people in that group, use various techniques and technologies, and they're all different. And we do remote healing as well, so it's a fascinating field, and I do believe that we are going to be moving away from the old paradigms of control and drugs that are created to interfere with the body's natural wisdom.
Right.
And in addition to that, we know that those drugs have become not only addictive to many people, but they're overpriced, and they are being used by the pharmaceutical industry to basically rape and pillage society and keep us inundated and brain dead. So, I'm exaggerating a little bit. There are some good things that come out of the medical profession as well, and there's some wonderful doctors, so don't get me wrong.
Right. No, but it is, but that's one of the unfortunate aspect of it is, and medicine is one of those kind of double-edged swords. It has a lot of good intentions and good applications, but it's just like, there is no medication on the shelf today prescribed by medical doctors that actually cures that actually cures illnesses. That's a mistake. It nullifies symptoms. Like when you take cough medicine, it doesn't actually cure you. When you take a headache, when you take a headache pill, it doesn't actually cure you. What it does is it numbs your brain or numbs the nerve, so you
Exactly.
And that's what all medication does across the board. It doesn't help you whatsoever. If anything, it just tries to ignore a problem. And so, consequently, a lot of these treatments either get addictive because you need, that painkiller or whatever it may be to function, or just never deals with the issue, and people consequently get a lot sicker after time. One of the things, and there's actually, this is a little bit off topic, but I'll mention it for your viewers. There's a good, very, very good documentary called A World Without Cancer by Edward G. Griffin.
I love Edward G. Griffin. He's one of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah, and he actually produced a documentary. Again, your viewers can just Google search it and watch the entire thing for free on Google, I'm sure.
What's the name of that again?
A World Without Cancer.
Okay. I'm writing that down.
And it's an excellent documentary. It was done, I believe, in the late 80s.
Okay, go ahead.
No, what I was saying is, I mean, if you did write him, I would suggest writing him one more time because he gets a tremendous amount of emails.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, and sometimes the emails go to spam because I get that sometimes, and, people will say, why didn't he respond back to me? And then when I tell him about it, he has no idea the person even wrote him. So I would write him again.
I will do that. Now, tell me a little bit about your esoteric background, your research. It looks like you've had quite a comprehensive, probably many lifetimes of research with Manly P. Hall, for instance, and there are many esoteric teachers that some that you mentioned in your site and so on. Can you give us a little background?
Powers, where did they come from, and how to utilize them? And that led me many years ago to Kundalini Yoga, and there was actually a organization in India by the name of Divine Life Society, and you could Google search it. It's like DLSHQ, and they have tremendous amounts of literature from Hindu yogis, a lot of them which are essentially unknown, about the formal educational system is an absolute disaster. So,
Right.
So I took it upon my own initiative to get educated in what, my heart truly desired and followed, which was the spiritual, occult, esoteric. I was really big for a very long time initially, this was many years ago, into kind of psychic powers. What were psychic powers? Of
your training and how you arrived at this, at your present spiritual place?
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned earlier, my formal academia consists of mathematics, which was in USF, and I actually left that when I was around 22 years old, never to look back because, in short,